Hello and welcome to Right from the Kickoff. I'll be your co-host this week, William Bayliss, and as always, we'll be joined by Joe Wright. How are you doing, Joe?
I'm good, thank you, mate. Obviously, very exciting last day, and there was a lot of tears on my part. So yeah, it was exciting.
But yeah, and down to be a veil of Tottenham Hotspur, like we'll talk about later, and talk about Tottenham. We have a fun, as you know by now, it's Guess Will. How you doing, Will?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me on again, guys.
Yeah, I
Yeah, we
mean,
can't.
I mean, there seems to be only one person we could talk to with everything that's been going off with Spurs over the last couple of weeks. So it'd be very interesting to get your thoughts
Yeah,
on it.
looking forward to it after yesterday's brilliant result.
All right, don't rub it in.
Well, let's jump straight into it though. So basically it was a fight for the top four. So it was that of Leicester, um, Chelsea, and Liverpool. Now it was very neck and neck, and it was up and down all afternoon. So first of all, in the 80th minute, Jamie Vardy put Leicester in front for a penalty. Originally, it wasn't given, even though it was a Stonewall penalty, wasn't it, Joe?
Yeah, it was. I mean that's why you bring VAR in. I originally, but to be fair to the referee, when he first went down, the way the camera was positioned, I thought the defender had got the ball. So when I saw it again, I was like, that's going to be given. That's a definite penalty. And of course it was, and obviously I was delighted. It was very short lived, but I was delighted.
Yeah, and it was a. I'm about to say, you're like, right, this is Leicester's afternoon. Then it's a great start. They can go from it. And then Ian Acho had a chance to make it too, and he just fluffed his lines, didn't he? He was through 1-1, and he just fluffed it.
Yeah, I think the thing is with, and I'm sure Will, you can chime in on this as well once I've said my bit. But I think it was a very very frantic game, and for a team like Leicester that were trying to get the win, wasn't really the game that we wanted. It was very much like a basketball match. I don't know whether you agree with that, Will. It was very end to end, wasn't it, for a lot of the game?
Yeah,
Yeah,
completely.
yeah,
Um,
it really was, to be fair. A lot of misplaced passes. It was a very interesting start to the game. You can tell that Leicester were nervous and Tottenham were just doing we're doing what they normally do at this stage, really. They're just panicking and they just couldn't get it under control, could they, Will?
Yeah, it was a kind of a classic Leicester Spurs game. I mean, recently there's always been a lot of goals, and it was as if Leicester had, because I've seen it so many times when Spurs have been in a similar position and you've just fallen at the last hurdle. And I saw so many similarities in the Leicester team. You're right; they just looked nervous, and I was thinking we were never quite out of the game because after Fafana went off and we started when we brought Bale and Moore on, I thought we'd always had a chance. But again, Leicester could have won. Leicester could have won 4-1 or whatever. It was just we had things that went well for us. But yeah, it was a really tight end to end game. But I mean that's why we love football, isn't it? Because we get
yeah, of
we get
course it
games
was.
like that.
Of course it was. I mean, when you're supporting the team that needs to win, though, it really did do my heart very very good, for sure. Just on a Leicester front in the game, obviously, the game ended obviously 4-2. I'm sorry to kind of rain on the parade a little bit, Will, but just wanted to talk about the fact that Leicester in the middle of the park, they just allowed Spurs to constantly walk in. Our sort of midfield was kind of joining with the defence. There was a massive gap in the midfield, and you let players like Ali and various other players of Spurs' quality walk into that space. Especially like you say, Will, when Mora and Bale came on, they really made a difference for you guys, and obviously exploited the pitch and got the win in the end. But I think the fourth one was a bit harsh, but I think by then Leicester knew that it was over. Yeah, it was the last minute kick of the game, 4-2. But yeah, Bale and Mora definitely made the difference for you guys.
Yeah, they really did. It was Mason's only good game of subs. The team wasn't the best, but yeah, bringing Moore and Bale on at that time just it just completely. We were able, because he saw that there was space opening up in the midfield, and he thought, well, we might as well go for it. But yeah, as I said, it could have gone either way. But yeah, you're right. We kind of just, I think we were just quite smart in how we approached the game, and I think we always backed ourselves. And if it was 2-2 for a long time, we could go and push on and get the third and the fourth.
I think just talking about that though as well, from a Leicester perspective, a lot of Leicester fans were saying it after the game. Obviously, I've got a few friends that are Leicester fans and whatnot, as you can imagine, and we were all saying the same thing. As much as Leicester's overall first 11's probably slightly better than Spurs's, in terms of the league position and stuff, I think the subs and everything that you have to bring on were better, if that makes sense. So the fact that you've got the impact players that I don't think Leicester really have, I think that's one area that Leicester fans would love to see strengthened over the summer, because it's cost us in quite a few games this season. Is just the strength of our bench isn't strong enough to be a top 4, top 6 side.
That's what will push you. I think that's the first. If you get a little bit more squad depth, you think all you needed over the season was one more win. If you have squad depth, you would have had that one win earlier on in the season.
Yeah,
so
I think
looking forward though, there's a lot more to look forward to from a Leicester point of view than the Spurs point of view, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with that, just because obviously we'll go on to it later. But yeah, 4-2 at finish anyway. We're all sorry for taking that over, but obviously that means that Leicester miss out on a Champions League spot. And because Liverpool got the wins brilliantly, I kind of always thought, didn't we, Will, that Liverpool were going to win.
Yeah, but Crystal Palace made it tough for them, to be fair. Like, Townsend had a glorious chance. So he should have taken the chance, and that would have went 1-0 Crystal Palace, and that could have made a different day in the end. Like, it could have been completely different. You just don't know what's going to happen. But so let's quickly talk about back to the Tottenham game, actually, because Kane obviously scored to make it 1-1. And that goal meant that he was the top goal scorer, and where would Tottenham be without him, this season? Top goal scorer and top assister. Like, I think that's one of the first times it's ever happened in Premier League history, isn't it? He's just a huge asset to Tottenham, isn't he?
He is, yeah. I mean, obviously, I'll pass this over to Guest, Will. But yeah, I mean, where would you be without him? And he's a fantastic player, isn't he? Obviously, we'll go on to the news in a minute. But how do you feel about the whole thing with Kane, and where do you see him going from here, and where did Tottenham need to strengthen? I know I've asked you a lot of questions there, but I'll give the floor to you, really. And what do you think Tottenham need to do this summer to keep you satisfied as a fan, basically?
A lot. I think we just need to act like a big club, and we haven't done that for the past however many seasons. In terms of Kane, he's just too good, isn't he? I mean, I'd love to go, and I'd love to see him go and win everything, because he does deserve it. And he talks so much about wanting to play at the best level. Can he do it? I mean, I'm sure he can, but is there a chance that he might go to a Man City or a Man United or whatever and not be as good? I don't think so, but it would be interesting to see. But in terms of Spurs, how he played this season, he played as our striker and our attacking midfielder and all the centre back at some point. So Levy's going to have to get a big fee and invest that in 2 or 3 really, really top players, and then I think we're going to have to get in a director of football or someone who knows what they're doing and can recruit players that we need for low fees and whatever. But Levy at the top doing everything clearly isn't working. So if Kane stays, great, but then we're not going to have the money to invest. So I mean, it's all really up in the air at the moment. What we need to do first is appoint the manager and go from there.
Just a question as well that I'm sorry, well, obviously I'll let you speak in a second, but just a question on that, which I'll be interested to get your opinion. Obviously it's been floated around that, even if you do get the money for Kane, because it does look like he's leaving, if you get the money for him, firstly, how much would it be? And there's been a lot of Spurs fans that just don't trust the hierarchy at Spurs to make the difference. Do you know what I mean? In terms of the actual invest the money into the squad properly, because you've had this before. You've had a rebuild try. You brought players in like Lamella. You brought in a couple of players in like Sergio Aurier and stuff like that, and they've not really hit the heights you need them to hit. So do you trust the players, the kind of hierarchy at Spurs to make the right decision, to bring the right players in, even after Kane could, air quotes, go?
I don't at the moment. No. Just with what happened with Bale. What we need is 2 or 3 world-class players for all the money we. I mean, I don't think Levy will accept anything under 150 for him, if I'm completely honest.
Yeah.
Whether that's a fair feel or whatever, I just think Levy knows how much he does for the club. So I think it'll be around 150. And then, I mean, from that, obviously, we could go out and sign a lot of really good players, or we could do what we did with Bale and sign 8 or 9 mediocre players, and then they'll all kind of leave after 4 or 5 years, not really doing much, and we'll just go through this cycle again. So
yeah, you'll get probably one world-class player from your academy, like Kane.
Yeah, a new Kane. That's exactly what we need. We need a new Kane.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that Dane Scarlett could do that for you. To be fair, like he's meant to be the next big thing for Tottenham, isn't he?
He does look good. He does look good. But again, it's obviously way too soon, isn't it? We thought Troy Parrott was going to be kind of not at Kane's level, of course, but I think a lot of Spurs fans thought kind of season coming up he'd be knocking on the door and trying to get in the team, but struggled at Ipswich on loan and Millwall as well. So he hasn't quite had the progress we all thought. So Carlos Vinicius as well. It doesn't look like we're going to sign him, and if we do, it will be for a really low fee. So
he's not a player.
A lot of work done.
He's not a player when I've seen him play that I've actually thought is decent. I've not really liked his attitude either. I mean, I remember when he scored a tap in against Flumin Marine in the FA Cup. And he celebrated like Mbappe, and I'm thinking, you're playing bricklayers, mate. Do you know what I mean? You don't have the right to celebrate like you just did.
Yeah.
Especially when it was, and when I mean it was a tap in, it was literally like he.
It was, and he smashed it in as well, didn't he?
Yeah,
he just
smashed it on the line.
So. I've seen. I think he's played maybe 20 games, maybe not, but obviously only appearances off the bench. He's kind of. He can kind of do a bit of everything, but he doesn't excel in it. Obviously, he's quite tall, he's quite big, and he's not slow. So he offers more than sort of Soldado did and Janssen. But again, I still think Fernando Llorente would do a better job than what Vinicius did this season.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't really know why we sold it. And it's those kind of decisions that. We're in the mess we are now. What I think we need is a kind of Thiago Silva or someone like who's just won everything.
Yes, someone with really experience, isn't it?
That experience. That's exactly what we need, but we don't sign players like that.
Yeah.
No.
Well, we'll wait and see what happens with that. Now, let's get back to football, shall we? Because I know we've got a lot to talk about today. So obviously, Leicester missed out, but Chelsea did all they could to miss out as well because they actually lost 2-1 to Aston Villa. Joe, Leicester game at the time, but I know you were flicking between to make sure. So Villa went 1-0 up through Traore. Then Algaze in the 52nd minute went 2-0. And at this stage, Leicester were winning 2-1. So you're like, oh, really, really confident because it would have to be something like really big to throw this away. And then in the 76th minute, obviously, Schmeichel scored his own goal. Then Tottenham never really looked back from there, winning 4-2, and Aston Villa winning 2-1 as well. So on another day, it could have been completely different, couldn't it, if Leicester were able to hold their own. But that's football, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, well, it is. And we, as sort of Leicester fans, I'm kind of hoping that this isn't the case next season, but that's twice, 2 years on the trot now. And again, I'm not, you've got to play these teams at some point. But I remember our last 3 games, were very similar last season to what they were this season, and I don't think it's overall. I don't think it's helped Leicester. In terms of it puts a lot of pressure on these games that you aren't necessarily favourite going into. As much as I would say that Leicester have got better infrastructure, they've got a slightly better team than Tottenham. Tottenham have some world-class players in Kane, and Bale when he's on one still can deliver a world-class performance. So when you're playing teams like that who can hurt you if you have an off day. And Tottenham, I thought Leicester were going to win, but I knew we'd have to be our best. And that's the thing is, if you're not at your best or you're 1 or 2%, these teams are going to hurt you. And we were unlucky with the running we had. Obviously, Man U won that game, and I said to you, I think we've done enough. But everything at that point, I was pretty sure that Liverpool were maybe going to drop some points. Of course, they didn't in the end. Yeah. And I just think that the running didn't help us psychologically because it was the same sort of running as last season, last 3 games. Again, not blaming anyone for that, but I just kind of feel like everything was kind of the power of last season. You know what I mean? It's kind of the same sort of thing. But the one thing that Leicester fans have that they didn't have last season, which is silverware in the FA Cup. So if you ask any Leicester fan, has it been a successful season? They'd say yes.
Absolutely.
When the dust settles, they'll say 100% it's been a great season. But disappointment of not getting to top 4 after spending 242 days in the top 4 during the season, that's where the disappointment comes. Of course, you're going to be disappointed. But if you'd have said to me at the start of the season, you'll finish 5th again and you'll get an FA Cup, I'd have snapped your hand off for it. Yeah. So it's kind of when you look at it like that, you go, it's been a great season, but it's just the disappointment of missing out on the last day again.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing, to be fair. And Liverpool, fair play to them, to be fair, finishing 3rd, winning 2-0 against Palace in the end. And after the whole season, people think we were going to finish 6th or 7th, but finishing 3rd is a massive achievement given the amount of injuries and everything, what they've had to suffer through, like the centre-back partnership that had a million under the sun. But fair play to Liverpool, to be fair, but they do have a world-class spot.
I've always been a bit like sort of, I don't know what you think about this guess, Will, but I've always kind of been a bit, skeptical of like the injury excuse for Liverpool. The only reason being, and it is an excuse, they've missed the two best centre backs all season pretty much, that is going to take its toll, and they still got the 4th best defence in the league. But the one thing I will say is there is a lot of teams in and around them that have their injuries as well. You look at Leicester, for example. I'm only going it from my point of view. Justin, ACL, Barnes having in the operation. Sionchu's been out. Evans is now out. We've had Ricardo's come back from an ACL injury. He's not looked the same since being back. We've had Maddison out with his hip injury for a lot of the season. Vardy's had been out for about a month doing a hernia operation. So I'm not saying that our poor Liverpool, they've done amazing because of all the injuries they have. But I think when you look at other teams as well, they've been hit with injuries. And I think Spurs have had a few injuries, haven't they, Will?
Yeah, we've had a few. This has been, from an injury point of view, one of our best, because last season and the season before, obviously under Poch, it was players were working harder, so injuries came more naturally. But we didn't have to. I mean, Kane obviously gets his annual January injury, but it was only a few weeks this time, and Son had a few games off, but not too many. But in terms of Liverpool, I think the 3-year cycle was always going to end at some point. And obviously with Van Dijk going, that propelled it to a level I didn't think we'd ever get to. But no. I do think from where they came from with injuries to win 26 of the last 30 points available, I think you would have to say they probably, I mean, as I'm saying it through gritted teeth, but they probably do deserve that Champions League play.
Yeah. I'm not saying they don't. That's not the point I was making. It's just, I think when you I was just getting fed up of hearing the excuse, because it's like, yeah, okay, it happened, but there's been other teams that have had that.
I think
that have had those types of injuries. And I would actually say that in certain points of the season, I'd argue that Leicester and Liverpool have probably been one of the most injury hit sides.
Yeah.
We've just been able, and the things with Leicester's size of their squad, the production that we've got out of them. Again, I am biased, and I'm willing to admit that. But I will say that we've done very well to be where we are. But I think if we hadn't have had the injuries that we had, I think we'd have definitely taken one of those spots for sure. And that's, I am saying it with a bit of bitterness, but I do believe that, honestly. I really do.
Yeah. Well, next season, a new season, we'll see what happens next season, shall we? Speaking of winning, Man City 5-0, and Aguero scored 2 on his final Man City game, coming off a bench, scoring a brace, and what a moment from it. It's taken ahead of Wayne Rooney for scoring the most goals for one single team in Premier League history. I mean, what a player, and what a send-off for the champions Man City, wasn't it? 5-0 in the end. What did you make of it?
I think it was a result that surprised me, honestly, in terms of the fact that, again, Everton, a real damp squid to finish. And they've got a lot of work to do in terms of recruitment and stuff in the summer. There's quite a few teams that are going to be doing the same thing, but you just wonder what the market's going to be like. I mean, just throwing this question to guess, well, what have the other teams got to do to catch Man City now? And especially if they do sign a player like Kane, does that just strengthen their position? And are they going to be just dominant like we see at PSG or at Bayern Munich, in the next couple of years?
I mean, that's the way it looks like it's going. You look at Man City and you think, where's their weakness? I mean, if they have Kane, I've always had question marks over their defence. I mean, there's the solidest I've seen them ever this season. But I feel like Stones has always got a mistake in him, and Ederson as a goalkeeper I don't think is the best, but with Kane in there, I think they're just the fear factor of playing Man City. Obviously, they'll have fans back as well next season. I could see a 4 or 5 year dominance again from them, because I mean, who can really stop them unless you get all the sort of top 6, top 7 teams investing heavily. But with the COVID market, I just don't really see that happening.
Yeah, but also not only that. I mean, Man City are potentially the richest club in the world at the moment. So even if the other 7 do invest heavily, can they invest as much as Man City? They can't. So,
maybe Chelsea can, but then next season I think there will be natural improvements from every team. But I just think if City get Kane, they're going to be pretty unstoppable.
Yeah, they're going to be unbelievable, aren't they? And they deserve a Premier League title. No one really got near them this season, did they?
No. They had the bad run at the very start of the season, didn't they? And then just didn't look back.
Yeah, and speaking of teams who've had a really, really good season, West Ham finishing 6th place in after winning 3-0 against Southampton. And what a season it's been for West Ham this season. It's just been unbelievable. And David Moyes, he has to be up there, contender for manager of the season, surely.
Yeah, he does. He does. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it as a Tottenham fan, guess, Will, but me and Will have been saying all season that we're pretty pleased that West Ham are doing well, just because, again, it's another team up there, kind of defying the top 6, and they have done really well. So, happy for them, and really happy they could also secure some European football and not European Conference League. I mean, who'd want to be in that? Eh?
Who'd want to be in that? Yeah, I mean, from a Spurs point of view, it's never nice seeing West Ham do well, but no, it is good to see. It's that smart recruitment that you got from West Ham. Souček, Kufau, some of their players they bought well, and they've got a manager in Moyes who, he knows his team, he knows his players, he knows his system, and all the players know the system, and that's why they've done so well.
But, I mean, Everton were when Moyes was manager for such a long time. Everton were knocking on the door consistently of top 6, weren't they? Yeah. They were kind of the team knocking on that door, and he's done the same again. He's that type of manager. If he gets his feet under the table, he can really do well with the club.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah.
Unbelievable. Now moving on to Wolves Man United. This obviously they're pretty much secured second place anyway, but a 2-1 victory. The young Swedish youngster called Elanga scored for Manchester United. It was a great header. I don't know if you've seen this, guys, but it was a really, really good header to make it 1-0. Then Wolves actually equalised, and then Mata scored in the last minute of added time in the first half, and that's how it finished, 2-1 Man United. And would you say overall, Man, you've had a good season, or how would you rate the season then?
I'd say for their squad, and in terms of catching Man City, they've not had a great season, but in terms of their squad, it's a place up from where they were last season. You've got to take United with a pinch of salt now. They're not the same United they used to be. In terms of they don't have the fear factor for me that a Man City have. But they've had a good season. They've got some very, very good players. Again, I think they're quite far off the pace in terms of challenging for titles. I think Liverpool will come back stronger next season as well. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. They've got to invest, like most teams. It's going to be interesting though, because I think a lot of it, yes, well, obviously we've been talking before the podcast, kind of what we're going to be talking about and stuff. And you made a very interesting point last night when you said, it's going to be a very, very interesting summer. And I think you were right when you said that, because not just for one team, I think just for the Premier League in general, it's going to be a very, very interesting summer, because it's going to be all about recruitment and who gets in the best players and what teams do. I think there's going to be a lot of change at a lot of clubs this time round. I don't know whether you agree with that, guess, Will, but I think there's going to be a lot of change.
A lot of change. It's going to be a really interesting watch. Smart recruitment, getting in early, not spending too much in the current market. In terms of Man U, I think they'll be happy with the season. But again, that gap to City is just you're gonna spend millions and millions to close the gap even for them, and they're obviously the closest challengers. But I think the only thing I thought about in that Wolves Man U, I don't think it was a penalty. I thought it was a very harsh call on Wolves. But I suppose the result doesn't really matter in the course of the season, does it?
No, Man U get a lot of penalties. I saw a stat of teams since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came in charge of Man U, and they've got the most penalties with 34. The guy's not even in charge of them he's not even in charge of them for 2 years. It was his first full season this season, and they've already had 34 penalties. And we were talking about this last week, weren't we, Will? About the fact that obviously they work the ball into the box and stuff, but you can't help but think some of them have been incredibly soft that Man U have got.
Yeah, they really have, to be fair. But we'll see what happens next season. But they get the ball in the box after all, don't they?
Yeah.
Now, let's move on to Arsenal, winning 2-0 in the end. Pepe scoring a quick brace in 11 minutes. That's how it finished. What do you make of Arsenal seasons, really? Bit of a lackluster season.
It's been the worst. We look at Tottenham. I know Tottenham only just finished above them, but for me, if you can take anything out of this season, guess well, it's the fact that Arsenal have been worse.
Yeah.
They've had an atrocious season. Let's not be honest. Obviously Bruce Rioch was the manager for a season, I think, back in 1995 or something like that. And a lot of Arsenal fans are kind of saying that this season's been worse than that. No European football next season. Obviously they've had a bid rejected from Daniel Ek. From the Kroenkes. Kroenkes aren't the ones to take them forward. I honestly think they could even have a worse season next season if the Kroenkes are still in charge. I don't feel confident if I'm an Arsenal fan at all. They've got a lot of good youth players, as we've spoke about and disagreed about on this show. But I think Arsenal as a whole, they need to invest heavily, and that not even just to challenge for the. We're not even talking about challenge for the title. We're talking about challenging back for the top six. Arsenal need to invest to challenge with like a Leicester or West Ham. At this point, this is where we're at with Arsenal. So it's been a very, very dire season for them.
Yeah, it really has, to be fair. You just wonder what's gonna happen from here. Now moving on to the Newcastle match. Speaking of Arsenal, the Arsenal youngster Willock now scored 8 goals in 8 games and
7
now
consecutively as well.
7 consecutively as well. You're correct. And what a young player now. Obviously, Newcastle won 2-0 and Fulham already down and dusted, so it's almost a formality. And then Newcastle finished the season really, really strongly. What do you make of it, Joe? And guess what?
Go on, guess. Well, I'll let you have this one.
He came. He was the youngest ever player to get 6 in a row, wasn't he? 6 goals in consecutive games. He's on 7. He could break Vardy's record next season. five goals. But yeah, Newcastle. I thought sort of 10 games or so ago they were nailed on going down, and Fulham were gonna rise up and finish sort of 14th or something. But
We
the relegation battle just went away, and in a matter of games, it was really weird. But Newcastle looked really good at the end of the season. So I think again they're another team with a little bit of smart investment. They could start. They were they were about that top 6 under Pardew at some points, weren't they? With Mike Ashley, is that ever going to happen? Really?
No. Just on that, I think what's interesting is there's been so many games where Newcastle have changed their style of play. I think their form, in the last 10 games took a massive upturn when obviously Willock started scoring, but also they got St. Maximin back and Wilson was back to full fitness. So those are their 2 best players in my opinion. And he just gives them more attacking impetus. I think Steve Bruce, though, really did, in the last 10 games, change his management style a little bit, and they started to play much more attacking football. And I think that's what saved them in the end.
Yeah, and they had a lot of players back from injury as well, which really helped them.
Yeah, that's what I've just said. Yeah, Wilson and Maximin come back. So yeah, it's helped them, and they're safe now. So fair play to Steve Bruce, and I think he could stay for another couple of seasons. Maybe another season. I think he's deserved that after the end. I don't think I was in that boat before the last 10 games, but Will just said, it's last 10 games they've started playing really.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they finished 12th in the end, and that's a huge achievement. After a few games ago, they were relegation teetering, weren't they? Now let's move on to Leeds West Brom. Now Leeds won this one 3-1, and you have to say overall Leeds have had a hell of a season, haven't they?
Really, really pleased for them actually. I know everyone says we don't like Leeds and stuff like that, but actually they've been a joy to watch. I've really enjoyed watching this season, and yeah, they've been a great addition to the Premier League. What do you reckon, Will?
Yeah, completely agree. I think at one point when you were beating us 2-1, we would have finished on the same points as Leeds. So, from their point of view, for teams kind of finishing around mid-table and they're not getting to finals or whatever, winning against the big teams or like 4-3s against Liverpool and that great game they played against City early on in the season. That's a dream to watch, isn't it? Obviously, it's a shame fans can't be there, but to see your team go head to head with they went head to head with City, and obviously a few weeks ago beat them at the Etihad. So from Leeds
with 10 men,
exactly. From their point of view, with Bielsa still there, again that could be another team that could sort of get pushed to the top 6 and whatever next season. So yeah, Leeds have been a great watch all season, really.
They've always been a kind of a neutral team for me this season that I've wanted to watch whoever they're playing.
Yeah,
they're just exciting, aren't they?
Yeah, I was like that with Sheffield United last season. I tried doing it this season as well, but it didn't quite go so well.
It's completely different season this year.
Yeah, speaking of which, they finished the season strongly, didn't they? I know, Will, you're currently living really close to the stadium, aren't you?
Yeah.
Being at university there, as I know. And I know they're relegated now with a bottom. But 1-0 in the end, and fair play, they've finished the season quite strongly in the end, bizarrely, haven't they? Only 5 points off Fulham, which is crazy if you think about it.
Yeah, that is, yeah, wow.
I mean, you know, they've had a diabolical season, but to be honest, the fact that they finish on 23 points.
Yeah.
The fact that they finished on 23 points when they were stuck on like 9/11 for such a long period in the season.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they've actually got the lion's share of their points in the last sort of 3-4 games. To be fair,
Yeah, it's been crazy.
so you know, hopefully they'll have a decent season. But for me, Sheffield United, unfortunately, are going to be one of those teams that are going to find it very, very hard in the Championship. I don't see them coming straight back up for sure. So it could be a while before we see them back in the Premier League. I might be wrong, but I think it will be a while.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with parachute payments and all that jazz. So yeah, those are all of the games of the Premier League. Let us know your thoughts of what you thought of the games, etc. Make sure you follow us on Facebook and on Instagram, and make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube and write your comments on what you think, like the video. And yeah, we're now going to move on to our teams of the season. Now, Joe, I'm going to start with you. What's your team and why have you picked them?
Okay, so I've gone for Martinez in goal for Villa. I think he has been the out-and-out best goalkeeper in the league. When you look at, before they signed him, obviously he played at Arsenal, didn't he? Won the FA Cup with Arsenal last year. They signed him, and I don't need to give you any more evidence in the league table. You know, they just missed out on relegation last year. They've bought this keeper in, and he's a large reason. He's probably got them, I think, about 10, 12 points this season on his own. You know, especially when you think about the Grealish being out. You know, they stayed in a lot of the games that they were struggling in, largely down to the point that he had. So the back four's very sort of consistent. So 2 centre backs for me. I've gone for Diaz. You know, I think when he came into Man City, they were all at sea a bit. He really kind of shored them up. He's brilliant centre back. Then I've gone for Maguire. Now, I wasn't going to go for Maguire, but I think, to be honest, he is Man United's captain, and I think he does make their back four so much better. You know, I look at the game against Liverpool where Man U lost 4-2 as an example, and obviously he wasn't playing, and they just seemed all at sea, whereas they seemed a lot more sure when he's at the back. Left back and right back, we've got Luke Shaw. Had a tremendous season, and then we've got Cancelo for Man City, who's been brilliant. Going into the midfield, we've got Jesse Lingard for me. I know it's maybe a controversial decision, but I think since he's been at West Ham, he's been amazing. He's a player that I have never really liked in terms of his attitude and stuff, but in terms of the football that he's played this season, he's been brilliant. That's instead of Grealish, and then I think the next three kind of go without saying for me. Well, Bruno Fernandez, obviously brilliant, assists, obviously penalties, goals, everything. Yuri Tillemans for me gets in. Leicester fan. He's been our player of the season. Played every minute of the Premier League pretty much. I think he actually has played every minute of the Premier League. He's been our kind of engine in midfield. He's non-stop, and he's going to the Euros with Belgium this year. So good luck to him. Hope he does well. And obviously scored the FA Cup final winning goal. I know it's not Premier League, but it has to get a mention. And then we've got Gundogan. He's just, to say that he was kind of a bit part player for Man City, he's done really well. I think he scored 12 goals this season, maybe 13.
He's been unbelievable, hasn't
he? He's been great, especially when they've not had a recognised number 9. And the front two for me, well, you can't pick anyone else. It's Mo Salah, and of course it's the main man, Harry Kane. I think Harry Kane has been, if he wasn't in the Tottenham side, God knows where they'd be. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah.
He's running with them. That's a really, really good team, actually. I know we have some similar players between all of us. So speaking of which, guess, Will, do you want to run through your team?
Okay, so I've got Edison in goal. Just, I think, his assists that he gets and what he offers to Man City as a whole I mean, yeah, Martinez has been brilliant. And like you said, he's moved upwards in his career from Arsenal to Aston Villa. So good on him.
Bit
Uh,
of a shot
and
there.
then in defence, I've got Cancelo and Diaz from City. Obviously, just I think in those positions they've just been the best this season. And then Shaw at left back, I don't think there's anyone that came close in terms of. I think he created one of the most chances. He's got one of the most chances to create out of everyone in the league this season from left back, which is pretty
Unbelievable. Yeah.
And then his teammate Maguire at the back as well. Again, it kind of Fofana from Leicester, maybe Stones as well. But I just think Maguire. You see what happened when Man United don't have him. He's so key to their whole team. I think he's deserved his spot. And then, as we've said, West Ham such a good season. Souček, he's in my midfield just because goals, presence. He's just had a great season for them. And then I've got Bruno and Gundogan from Man City just in front. Again, I think Gundogan's been one of the reasons Man City have done so well, especially in that kind of before they started to pick up wins, and at the start of the season where they weren't quite doing as well. He really he upped his game and took them to the level that we all know they can be. And then Bruno kind of all the penalties he gets speaks for himself really. And then I think the front three, I think again, I suppose Son, some people would debate, but I've gone Son, Salah and Kane. I don't think you can really have too many disagreements with that. I just think over the course of the season they've been
because you have to remember it's over the course of the season, and the first half of the season for Tottenham, they were unbelievable, weren't they?
Yeah.
You have to look at the season as a whole, don't you? Really, not just at the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lingard is he's definitely knocking on the door, but I just think obviously it was only in January he kicked on, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest though as well. In defence of Lingard, because obviously I put him in. The reason I put him in is because he didn't really have any chance. His half a season was his full season. He didn't really have a chance at United.
Yeah,
so I think, and also one thing I want to say on Lingard just quickly is he kept himself in incredible shape considering he wasn't playing consistently at United.
Yeah,
he was able to just come straight into the West Ham side from January and just make such a difference.
Yeah.
So for me, he's been phenomenal. But I understand the argument against him not being in for sure because it was only half a season.
Yeah. So we'll move on to my team of the season now. So Joe, you haven't heard all of this yet. So in goal, again, I've gone Martinez. I think he's just been unbelievable after signing from Arsenal. I think he's one of the signings of the season, along with Diaz, who's also in my team. So my back four is going to be Cancelo, Maguire, Diaz and Shaw, which is exactly the same as everyone else's. I think we just concreted there. That'll be a hell of a defence, wouldn't it? The Manchester back four. In defensive midfield, I've gone Souček. Now, for me, again, he's one of the signings of the team. He's like a brick wall. He's just unbelievable. And it just shows how, I know we spoke about it before, but it just shows how good West Ham's recruitment is. It's just unbelievable. Like, no one would have heard of him before this season, would they? Let's be real. Unless you really knew the Czech league. Moving on to, I've got De Bruyne, which I know he hasn't had his best season, but he's just one of the best players in the world. Like, he's in the top 10.
Yeah.
He's been unbelievable. And Bruno Fernandez, again, I know we spoke about he's not our biggest fans, but again, he's in all of our teams because he has been really, really good. Let's be real.
According to Will Guestwell, apparently Bruno Fernandez hates us. He's not our biggest fan, is he? Sorry, I just started picking you up on that. Carry on.
And the front three being Salah, Kane, and I've actually gone Phil Foden. Now, I know it's not his breakout season, but you have to remember, he's still a kid, isn't he? He's still 19 years old, and he's just been phenomenal. And in the Euros, he has to be one of the first players you put on the team sheet. Right? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, I would, for sure. Yeah.
Like his finishing, his balance on the ball. It's just he's going to be a hell of a player when he's older as well. He's a hell of a player now. Let's be real.
Yeah,
So-
he's really good. He's really good.
So those are our teams of the season. If any of you listening have anything else to say, any differences in your teams of the season, please comment below. Let's move on to our player of the season. So I'm going to start with Joe. Who's your player of the season and why?
For me, I know they didn't have the best season overall as a team, but again, it's the same reason I put him in the team. If I was a manager of a club and I had the option to pick, he'd be the first person in my team. It's Harry Kane for me. I just, like I was saying I've obviously said to guests many times over, if he wasn't in Tottenham's side, where would they be? I think he's offered more assists, he scored goals, and I think there's no one in the Premier League in that position you'd rather have in a scoring position. You pretty much know every time that he gets into that position that he's gonna score, and he's reliable. And we're lucky to have him as England captain, to be honest, because he's a hell of a player. So for me, it's Harry Kane.
Harry Kane, that's a very, very good choice, and I have a feeling guess Will might be agreeing with that. What do you think, Will?
Yeah, I think it has to be most assists and most goals. Just a complete player. Even just the way he took his goal yesterday, it was just.
That was a great finish.
It was like literally perfect.
You knew it was in before it left. When I saw who it was, I was like, well, this, even like about 2 seconds before it hit the back of the net, you knew it was in.
Exactly. He's just been absolutely phenomenal. I think his best ever season by far, and that's saying something. But again, probably just opens up the door for him to move to City. So not great from a Spurs point of view, but
it's a bittersweet.
Bittersweet, yeah.
For how good he is, he does deserve a move like that.
Yeah, fair play. And I'm going to be slightly different from my player of the season because defenders are like underrated in a way. So I'm going to go Ruben Diaz. Now, bearing in mind this is his first season in the Premier League for him, and he's just been unbelievable, hasn't he? He has been the standout performance this season, hasn't he?
Yeah,
and that's why I'm picking Ruben Diaz.
He's transformed. He's transformed the Man City back line, and I think they literally signed him the day after we beat them 5-2. And ever since then, really, their form just went from do you know what I mean? It was just
unbelievable.
Yeah, no, that's a good pick.
And very, very quickly, we're going to run through our managers of the season. So take it away, Joe.
For me, it's a difficult one. It's between two. So I'd say Pep and David Moyes. I think for me, though, I'm going to give it to David Moyes. I think we said along this show that David Moyes has done well, but even to get them into the Europa League spots and top 6 this season has been a phenomenal effort. And I think the reason it's over Pep is just because of the resources that Pep has. Pep is a phenomenal manager, and he will always be in there for me as manager of the season if they have this kind of season, because they were going for the quadruple at one stage, and they're probably going to get a Premier League and a triple, if you like. So obviously with the Champions League next week, so they've done really well. But I think David Moyes gets it just because West Ham, he's transformed them, isn't he, into somebody like they're challenging for stuff you wouldn't have guessed that they were challenging for at the start of the season. So for me, West Ham's manager David Moyes gets it.
Yeah, fair play. And guess what do you think? Would you agree with that?
I think I've gone Pep, but I think going anyone else, David Moyes has got to be up there. But I just think he's still able to get the best out of his players, and he doesn't look like slowing down. He has them playing in such a good way, and you just think the only reason they weren't sort of knocking on that 100-point region this season was because they don't have that natural finisher up front. So then if they bring in someone like Kane, they will be literally unstoppable. But again, the whole team only works because Pep's such a he's a genius, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think David Moyes has had brilliant season, but I just think Pep
just quickly on that guest, Will. I know obviously we spoke a lot about Kane, and it's been quite a difficult one for you to answer, sort of thing. But in terms of if he goes to Man City, will it be a case of him conforming to what Pep wants, or will it be Pep changing the way he plays? Or will it be a bit of both? How do you see Kane fitting into that Man City setup? And I know it's a difficult question for you to ask, being a Spurs fan, but if it does happen, and it does look like it's going to happen, let's be honest, where do you what do you see the give and take between those two kind of components in the manager and the player?
Yeah, I think give and take is key. I think they'll both understand. Yeah, they both understand each other. They both know that not one of them is bigger than the club or the project. I mean, maybe you could say Pep is not bigger than Man City, but obviously how good they are now is all down to him. But I think Kane in his well, I'd say prime when he was younger and when we played under Poch, he pressed high all the time and he had that energy. I think he still does, but obviously with Mourinho and how we are now, there's less of it. So I think he'll just have to focus on pressing a bit more. But again, with what he can do, with how he can drop into midfield or just play as a number 9, I think he'll be able to fit in the system pretty well.
He'll get less assists next season if he goes to Man City, and I'm not.
Yeah, but he will score so many more goals.
If he get 30 goals, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, and let's not forget that Kane was injured for part of the season, wasn't he, as well? So he's been unbelievable. And my manager of the season is also David Moyes. I think he's done a heck of a job for West Ham, and he's really, really good. But yeah, that's our season. We'll be having another podcast for the Champions League, obviously, and what we think of, and after we'll have one for the Euro. So it's going to be really, really exciting.
Yeah.
The football never stops, does it, Joe?
Yeah, the football never stops, and we'll be with you. Perhaps not as much over the summer, but we'll be definitely doing them. Hopefully once every 2 weeks, maybe a bit longer than that. But obviously with the England set up, and if there's any breaking news on transfers or we feel like the podcast is needed, we'll definitely be doing one. So yeah, just on that, England's team comes out tomorrow. Are you guys all nervous for that, or what do you think? And how do you think England are going to do? Just very quickly, how do you think England are going to do? Guess, Will?
I don't think we'll win it. I think we've got a good chance to, but I think sort of semi-finals, getting around there is where.
You?
What about you?
Yeah.
Anything can happen in the tournament as well. And I've just read the news that for Spain, Laportine's in the squad and Ramos misses out. So big breaking news coming out.
Wow.
You probably didn't know that. I just came up with my feed.
That's big. That is big.
Right. So yeah, thanks for joining us. As always, guess what? How did you enjoy your time here?
Of course, it's always nice talking about football. Hopefully the Kane saga will die down, so I don't have to keep torturing myself talking about it. But
yeah, sorry about that today, mate.
Again.
Sorry about that.
And yeah, thanks for joining. Make sure you subscribed to our channel on YouTube right from the Kickoff Podcast. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and follow us on Facebook. And make sure you like the video. And yeah, as always, next week we'll be joined by the one and only Peter Crouch, won't we, Joe? The big man.
What a fella.
Right, I'll see you guys.